Okay, your teacher hands you some mystery solutions, and she tells you what the mystery solutions are, not in that order. Okay? I don't need the bracket, but. Okay. What do you think you do? And they give you the results of their experiment, right?
Does it matter what color they are?
So even before I go on to this, well, that's a good idea. We did just finish a lab, and I'm not going to tell you the results, but one of them is colored. But we don't even need that coloring to answer this question, right? So the best way to set up this question is what I was wanting to see. Maybe a couple of you did it in your own way, but I wanted you to use solubilities. I wanted you to write all the positives here. That's just the 3 positive ions you're dealing with, correct? And then the negative ions. Who am I ignoring? Am I ignoring you? Oh, sorry. Okay. And then I will not participate in your conversation. Carbonate. What else we got here? Hydroxide, right? Okay. This is what you have. Now you can fill it in by looking at your, drum roll, solubility table. So I'm going to pause the video while you fill this in. Okay? So I'm going to write so 1 and 3 no precipitate, 2 and 4 no precipitate, 3 and 4 no precipitate. Are there any commonalities between these numbers? 4 and 3, right? So what can we assume about 3 and 4?
Don't do anything.
Well, what could be 3 and 4? Sodium could be 3. Okay. So all of these could be a 3 or a 4, right? This is a logic problem.
Is there a question like this on the exam?
Yes. Really small though. I think it's like a 3-part one. Okay. What else do I notice about the precipitates? They're colored. So 3 and 4 definitely don't precipitate with each other, but 3 can form a precipitate with 2. 1 can form a precipitate, or 4 can perform a precipitate with 1, and 1 and 2 definitely form a precipitate. Okay? So my mixing together, what could I get? I'll do this one.
Word. She's recording.
I realize I'm recording. Okay. Minus the bad language.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I have 1, 2, 3 choices for precipitate. Right? What would you do?
Leave it blank.
I could leave it blank. Okay. What are the things that don't precipitate? 3 and 4, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what are things that don't cause or don't occur with precipitates? Solids precipitate. Okay. So something like NaCl won't precipitate. Okay, how would I form, for example, NaCl with using these? So CrCl would have to bond with either one of these 3 to form NaCl that wouldn't make a precipitate, right? So that's not very helpful. So if I go the other way, I think about CrCO3 makes a precipitate, right? Okay. How do I form Cr2CO33? How would I form this? Well, there's 2 CO3s and only one thing that has Cr, right? So to form this precipitate, I would use this and either of these, right? This one or this one.
Why is he?
Okay. Is there anywhere on?
Wait. Isn't that the same one? Yeah. Why are they on the place?
Oh, did I mix it up? What do I have here? CrCO3, Oh, yeah.
I just wrote it.
That's even easier. I even made the question easier. I wrote it twice because I was probably talking. Okay, so the only way I can make CrCO3 is to mix what?
CrCO3 and Na2CO3.
Right? Okay. Now, I go across to the next one with my other carbonate here. And I look at that it would also precipitate with copper, right? So this and this and this and this would precipitate. But it would not precipitate with this and this, would it? Or could it? Okay. CrCl3 mixed with Na2CO3 would form a precipitate. Okay? Because I double displaced them. So the Cr would bond with the CO3. You said that would form a precipitate. Okay? So these are the products. Okay? The Na would bond with the NaCl, which would not form a precipitate, which makes sense, right? Because we know that already from life. Okay? So I move on down the column. I also note that this NaCO3, carbonates like to precipitate. Okay? So this wants to precipitate. It can also precipitate with copper, but it will not precipitate with Na. So it won't precipitate with this one. Okay? So this one will precipitate with 2 out of the 3. Which one on this side precipitates with 2, but not the 3? 1 and 2 precipitate, 1 and 4 precipitate, and 2 and 3 precipitate. So my commonality is either 1 or 2, right? So say if I labeled this 1 for now for the heck of it. Okay? This is my logical guessing here. Okay, so that makes sense. So 1 would precipitate with 2. So maybe this would be this. Got it?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to do some guessing. I'm going to say this and this are 1 and 2, just for the heck of it. Okay? I'm going to then say, well, I know CO, or 1, will also precipitate with 4, but what if I made this 4? Okay? Do 2 and 3 precipitate?
Yes.
Would this cause a precipitate? Does NaOH cause a precipitate with CrCl3? Does Cr and OH precipitate?
Yeah.
Cr and OH also do precipitate. Okay, so now I check my logic. Does it make sense? 1 and 2 precipitate. Do 1 and 2 precipitate? Does CrCl3 precipitate? Yes.
Yeah.
Does 1 and 3 cause no precipitate? If this is 1 and this is 3. Does NaOH, does it precipitate? And CO3Na, does that precipitate? No. So this one's also correct. Can you check 1 and 4? One and 4, do they precipitate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Copper and carbonate do, so that's correct. Do 2 and 3 precipitate?
Yeah.
So 2 and 3 form a precipitate, so that's correct. Do 2 and 4, do they not form a precipitate? So it's 2. 2 and 4, do they precipitate? CrNO3? No. And NO3Cr. Okay. Do you see that I'm right? Do you see that I took just a guess out of thin air? I didn't take a guess out of it.
So how do you pull your guess out of thin air?
How did I pull my guess out of thin air? I didn't even look at the answer, Ken. I haven't done that question for about 3 years. This carbonate doesn't like to be in solution. It wants to precipitate. So I zoned in on this.
Okay, but why
Okay.
couldn't that have been number 2?
Could that have been number 2? Would it have worked?
I don't know. Could you have
Then if it was number 2, and then what would have been number 4?
why does number 4 matter?
Because it's precipitating or not precipitating. If it follows the pattern that they saw as their results, then I would choose those.
But if that were number 2, I don't know, could number 4 have been like NaOH?
Yeah, it could be the other way. Well, the answer key is solution 1 as this,
Yeah, so
solution 2 is this, solution 3,
as CRCL and solution 4 is NaOH.
yeah.
So what's the difference? Is it the colors? Is the colors important? Because I felt, because it mentioned the colors, and your answer key says you're wrong right now, so.
You know what precipitates blue.
No, I don't.
If
That's the problem.
the colors of the precipitates weren't listed, this would work as well. Since the colors of the precipitate are listed, you're absolutely right. But I can't tell you because all the labs aren't in.
But how do I know which color is which chemical? Like, am I supposed to memorize that before going into it?
I would never ask you something like
So
that.
then how do I know which?
Will be multiple answers.
Because, like, I can assume, because it tells me that solution 1 is blue in color, that it forms the blue precipitates, right? It tells me that too, but how do I know, how do I identify that as a certain chemical?
Will you have the
It's not that complicated on the final exam.
So,
there's no colors on the exam?
No. No. It's based solely on precipitates.
I'm good.
Yeah. I don't want to go there, Bailey K, because it's an answer to the lab that was due last week that people still need to hand in by tomorrow at 3:30 this year. Right? Okay. If you want me, I'll explain to you individually what the colors mean. Because it also tells you that solution 3 is green in color, but you don't see a green precipitate, right?
But you see a white precipitate between number 3 and 4.
So I did this question based solely on precipitate or no precipitate. You can do the question with precipitate, no precipitate. Okay? If you can find another logical order that fits this criteria, then it would also be correct. Okay? But when you ask me what I focused on a carbonate, because I know carbonates like to form precipitates, and nitrates rarely form precipitates. So those are the two things I based it on. And I know chloride only wants to precipitate with 3 things. Okay? But that's looking at patterns and trends. There can be if it fits this logic.
Okay.
Not using the color, because I'm staying away from the color. Because I won't, because then I'm not giving answers to the ones who did the lab, who didn't finish their lab, and not fair to the people who did their lab on time. Okay?